Thank you so much for joining me here today, Dr. Karreman. We know you're going to be speaking at our upcoming Regenerate conference, and you have just a wealth of knowledge to share around animal health, around homeopathy, and really excited to have you on. So thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for the invitation, Michael. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Karreman, your background in both soil science and veterinary medicine it's quite unique. How has your experience in working on dairy farms and your exposure to homeopathy and biologics shaped your approach to animal health and regenerative ag?
Well, soils is where it all starts at, and I got my start in agriculture. I'm a suburban kid. I grew up in suburban Philly, and took a philosophy class. We had to do a project on a topic of our choosing, and one that was happening back then. That was 1981. Was a famine in Ethiopia, and strange as it sounds, I realized people got to eat, and so I started learning about agriculture, and soil science was my major in college, which of course is the basis of all land agriculture. And I this is just a brief background, if you will. I mean, because it's really about where I'm at now. It shaped it. In my third year in college, I worked with the Soil Conservation Service as a soil conservation aide, basically surveying out subsurface drainage, manure storage facilities, farm ponds, all those kind of cool things. And always in the background, I saw dairy cows. And I saw a lot of dairy cows, but not up close. And so then I got done college, and I wanted to learn about dairy cows because I love animals. I've loved animals since I was a kid. So I pretty much apprenticed myself out for about 6 years on dairy farms. And when I started milking cows, I actually happened to be over in the Netherlands. I have a lot of Dutch relatives, and they're not dairy farmers, but I ended up working on a dairy farm there because I really wanted to learn directly about the cows. And I started milking cows. I was instantly addicted in a very good way. And I've been milking cows or been around cows ever since. I find them to be the connection between the land and the food that I wanted to help produce. And, back then, there was no such thing, at least back when I was starting agriculture, as organic or regenerative. I just wanted to help feed the world. Honestly, I just wanted to help make food. So, but back then there were cows still out on pasture a lot more. And so seeing the cows out on pasture and grazing, and getting my start at Seven Stars Farm in Chester County, Pennsylvania, with organics, really brought everything together. The cows grazing, turning, as my wife Suzanne loves to say, and she's so right, turning sunshine into butterfat and cream right through the dairy cow. So it's one big package, if you will. And there's something about dairy cows that really, I think, people that know about dairy cows really know, is that they create a connection between a person and the animal, because you're milking them once or twice a day, right up close. I mean, just this morning I was milking, and we milk 60 Jersey cows right now, and I know each one by name. I know each udder. I know how they milk. I know their personalities. So it's really, from the soil to the cows, is just full life. I'll just put it that way.
That's amazing. I couldn't think of a better way to put it. That's really touching, honestly. In now, Regenerate 2023 coming up soon, November 1st to 3rd. If anybody wants tickets, you can go to regenerateconference.com. There are virtual options for attendance. It's going to be in Santa Fe, New Mexico this year. If you want to come in person, Dr. Karreman will be there. We'll be performing a virtual tour of his farm in North Carolina that will be presented at the event. It's going to cover kind of the hows and whys of his operation, and I'd love to hear some sneak peek insights into what that tour might look like for folks and what they'll get out of it if they're considering Regenerate 2023.
Sure. Obviously, I'm a dairy cow guy. I mean, let me just finish what I was saying. Just I'll let you know. I mean, I've been a dairy cow vet since 1995 till this very moment. And now I've resumed working with dairy cows. And so our farm is a diversified dairy farm, diversified in these ways. One, we have a herd of 60 A2 polled registered Jersey cows that we milk once a day, that we keep the calves on the cows, which is a very progressive, forward-leading effort in the dairy industry. Well, I won't say the dairy industry, but certain segments within the dairy sector are starting to really look at keeping baby calves with their cows and not separating them right at birth. And so we do that. We're probably one of the largest farms in the US that does that, to be honest. Most people have, a few cows and they keep their calves with them, and that's great. And so I'm going to be talking about that some, as well as we have, it's 400 acres, 200 in pasture. We don't grow any crops. It's all managed intensive grazing. We'll rotate our lactating cows 2 to 3 times a day, depending on, the weather, the season, the growth of the pastures. And we also have a bull herd, since my wife sells bull semen. So we have about 30 Jersey bulls. We keep all our animals. None of them go to the stockyards. They stay with their mom until they're about 5-6 months old. Then they're separated, the boys from the girls. And the 30 bulls are either collected or leased or sold. We sell them from North Carolina up to Wisconsin, to New York, to even Ontario, Canada. We also have about 400 layers. Right now, we got some Delawares in mobile egg houses. So we collect the eggs daily, and we move the egg houses about every 3-4 days after some mammal group has been on a pasture. We also have about 30 St. Croix Katahdin mix sheep, which they're hair sheep, so they're for mutton or lamb at some point. They're not for wool. We have them. We co-graze sheep with the bulls. We also have 4 horses that we co-graze with the cattle at times, and also young heifers. And sometimes we co-graze the yearling heifers with the sheep to be guardian species livestock. We grow a lot of annual warm season and cool season grasses. We have been no-tilling without any chemicals now for the last year, just waiting for the right time for the new seed to be put in the ground. And we have pigs, and pigs are a very important part of the ecological process here in the woods and on marginal land. They will renovate and regenerate soil just simply by their snouts. So we also have pigs. Right now, only 5, but sometimes we'll even have up to 50. We raise them as grower finishers. We haven't had any animals, sows, give birth yet, but we're thinking about it. So they play a big role in turning the earth over and getting the seed that's inherently in the soil, in the seed bank in the soil, growing. And a lot of times when we have pigs, we'll find ryegrass volunteering afterwards without ever having put any seed in the ground. And then one other, we have livestock guardian dogs, Great Pyrenees, and they have been helpful. They tend to wander if they're not trained correctly, but we have quite a diverse farm and diversified pastures as well, which I'll talk about at the meeting. The seed mixes we use, and I'll be showing a lot of pictures of all this. And also just, here's the real bare truth, is that the soil when I got here was pretty bare, and we have a Piedmont clay soil, and the topsoil was stripped off because of it got logged. And so we had subsoil basically right on the surface, which is like concrete, orange concrete. And it's only by biology, with the animals on the land, with the urine, the manure, feeding them, unrolling bales of hay in the wintertime, enhancing the biology, releases the minerals in those soils that otherwise wouldn't be released. And so now we have a very vibrant farm, whereas just 5 years ago, some of our sorghum Sudan grass that we would plant at the right time with the right weather conditions and everything would maybe come up, maybe half a foot, and sorghum Sudan now, as it should, comes up 5 feet high, and the cows graze in it, and it's a very green farm, and it's all from biological practices we've put in place.
So at AGA, of course, our standards are of course focused on nutrition, but more so focused on animal health. And apart from nutrition on your farm, and I think you've shared quite a lot of the things that you're doing, but what are some of the top contributing factors that you found that significantly impact the well-being of your livestock?
Really well managed grazing, number one, all the way around. Also, good laneways so they don't get lame, because they got to walk, of course, to graze. And if they're lame, I just lifted a hoof on one of our cows, Annie, this morning, and she's just, has a minor problem, but she's a little slower than the rest of the herd, that are running out to the pasture this morning. One of the big things, the nutritional aspect is I can put it really simple for everybody, at least that have ruminants, and that is rumen fill. Rumen fill is how well filled the rumen is. Basically, are you providing enough groceries for what the animal needs? And so if you're milking cows or goats or sheep, you're extracting from them, and you have to make sure that they have enough groceries every day. And you can visually see that very easily, and I'll show that in pictures in the meeting, if they're full or not. And so we're always looking at rumen fill on whether or not the animals have eaten enough in a pasture. Like this morning, they came into the barn real full because they were on a sorghum Sudan grass pasture overnight. But then you also have to balance that out with how low are they taking the pasture? And you got to have residual, of course, for the root growth snap back with the moisture. As far as other, you can count their chews of cud for ruminants. Should be about 60 chews per cud, which sounds weird. So when they burp up the cud, they should chew 50, minimum 60 times that cud before they swallow it. And that tells you about good digestive health, and good digestive health, especially in a ruminant, you have to have good ruminant health, gives health. And good digestive health, as we all know now more and more with the microbiome that everyone's talking about in hard science, is so important. But other than that, like when we're milking the cows, or if you have goats or sheep and you milk them, you have to do basic conventional hygiene, cleaning the udder, dry, making sure the milk looks good before it goes in the tank.
You're talking about just the most important things that you feel are impacting your livestock.
Yeah, I'd say our problems on our farm would be, and amazingly this year not so bad, hooves from walking, and getting stuck in between the hooves and getting a foot rot, which is very easy to treat. And I can talk about that maybe in one of the breakout sessions in a natural sense, because that's my forte, is natural treatments.
Speaking of,
yeah,
you've worked on natural treatments for dairy cows, and you advocate for reducing the reliance on antibiotics and hormones in livestock, which of course our standards prohibit. Could you highlight some of the practical and effective naturopathic approaches that you've successfully implemented on your farm?
Absolutely. Well, I wouldn't say just on my farm, but on few hundred farms that I've worked with as a dairy vet in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I really, due to the organic rule, as you know, in the US, and I know that the AGA has the same rule, that if antibiotics are used, the animal has to be taken out of production. Isn't that correct with AGA as well? So that's a two-edged sword in a sense, really. It's because it's a punitive action to the farmer, because they're like, if they're using the antibiotic, they've got to get rid of the animal. That's the rule. But on the other hand, for me as a vet who was already open-minded going to veterinary school, it was incentive in a weird way to try alternatives. And most of my veterinary colleagues, just like me, trained in vet school, just learn, real basically antibiotics, hormones, steroids, and surgery, those kind of things, and anesthesia. So when you're faced with, an infectious disease process, what are you going to use? Well, it's not too far-fetched to say, hey, let's look back to what they used prior to the antibiotic era. The antibiotic era is very finite, and it's almost like both ends now because of everything, like it's been utilized so much, or if you want to say abused too much, antibiotics. But prior to 1940, they were using botanicals, they were using biologics, they were using basically those two big modes of treatment, standard veterinary care. So there's a lot of veterinary textbooks which actually have a lot of botanicals and biological treatments in there, and that's what I drew from. And so let's just say you have a cow with what I like to call mysteriosis, or even well, we'll just say a cow since that's my thing, but goat, sheep, for a dairy cow that has a fever of unknown origin, or can't really do a physical diagnosis on the spot, what are you going to do in an organic herd, or a herd that can't use any antibiotics? I'm going to use biologics. There's a great product made out of Colorado. Hope it's okay to name a product here. I use it. I'm not part of the company or anything. It's called Bovacera, and it's basically antibodies, not antibiotics, but antibodies that are formed by other animals, in this case cows, against very standard gram-negative bacteria, they're called. Things that cause coliform mastitis, pneumonia, salmonella, those things. Then I'll also use an immune stimulant called Amplimune. Amplimune is an immune stimulant made from a soil bacteria that stimulates a beta and gamma interferon. So there's two parts to our immune system. There's the specific immune system where we create antibodies or passively take them in, like I just mentioned. And there's also the innate immune system that we have, the same as with turtles or fish or whatever, which is like our firewall against anything and not specifically. And so the Amplimune increases the beta gamma interferon, which basically says, you stay away, you're out, and that's a firewall. Then I also use vitamin C as a good antioxidant. Also, I use a botanical mix that has garlic and ginseng and golden seal and echinacea and barberry in it. All have very strong antibacterial qualities. I even give that IV. All this stuff I give IV. And you say, gosh, you can give a botanical tincture IV. Well, when I read about they do that in Chinese hospitals, I'm like, okay, I can do that with a dairy cow. So basically, all veterinarians have a certain kind of like routine in their black bag. When they see something, they use this. They see this, they do that, because people want something that's effective right away. So I had to come up with something pretty effective short of an antibiotic, and I've done that. And I give a lot of talks on it across the country and other countries, even to veterinarians and vet schools and everything. So I'm trying to, it's weird. It's like kind of going back to the future, if you will. I mean, I do look back to the old books. I don't use everything in the old books, but I also have a lot of respect for what veterinarians could do in those days prior to the antibiotics and our heavy reliance on them.
With your extensive experience in the dairy practice and as a member of the USDA National Organic Standards Board, how do you see the role of regenerative ag in improving animal health on a broader scale?
Well, I would say this, and it kind of goes back to me coming down here to North Carolina from having been in very fertile Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I mean, real fertile. I've been in the certified organic world since 1988, quite a long time. And I love it. I mean, it's been my professional career. But I would say also, and as you mentioned, I was on the National Organic Standards Board, coming up with helping draft standards for materials that can be used in guidances for grazing and whatnot. But I would say that coming down here to North Carolina, where this particular patch of land was stripped of topsoil, and coming here and looking at it and going, oh my gosh, this looks like a lunar moonscape here. I mean, I just was like, what am I going to do? I don't think that certified organic fertilizer, and we tried it, is like, an input substitution type positive effect. You got to have the biology. And that's where the regenerative agriculture, whether it's organic regenerative or not organic regenerative, really wins. To me, I love certified organic, like I said, but it's the biology of the soil. And I wish I'd learned soil biology while in college. I learned I learned soil mapping classification. conservation, as I mentioned earlier. But the biology, there's so little known about it. But when we can tap into the biology of the soil, any soil, I think that things will grow. We use a lot of compost, and you can use compost tea, but you have to add biology to the earth to have the earth give back to the animals and the people. And if you just, that's where regenerative really wins. I don't care if you're organic regenerative or not.
Of course, when we're talking about regenerative ag, holistic management is always a part of the conversation. How do you incorporate that approach into your daily farming practices to ensure the health and the vitality of your livestock?
Well, I would say everything we do is on the farm is what is the, I don't want to say we're like total cutting edge, but we're pretty cutting edge on this farm. And so we always are integrating we're layering over livestock. We're making sure that, how do we do the decision making? Well, it's always looking ahead. I mean, it's always looking ahead, not just what we got right now, not how much we can take from the cows right now, because we don't get that much because the calves take it. But golly, I don't even know how to. I'm too close to it to really answer that question. I don't know.
If anybody wants to see, you can see a virtual tour of it
Right.
at Regenerate 2023 and get your eyes on it firsthand through the virtual tour. Again, regenerateconference.com. Feel free to come get tickets there. We'd love to see everyone get a little more Dr. Karreman as well and get a firsthand experience of what he's doing on his farm. Now, of course, in Lancaster, working with a lot of Amish dairy farmers and of course, your veterinary colleagues, what are some of the most common challenges that you observe when it comes to animal health, and how do you address them?
Okay, well, it depends what system they're in specifically in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. There's a lot of tie stalls, which are like foreign to people down here in North Carolina and foreign to a lot of people. But tie stalls are basically, individual stalls for cows. And they work very well in the Northeast, upper Midwest, into Canada for the long winters, for housing. But some of the problems there would be just not getting enough exercise. I really believe that, some of the challenges would be the animals are, in general, even in regular conventional agriculture now, animals are kept inside. And even in the tie stall barns, because it's easier to take care of them or feed them and milk them in tie stalls, they're kept inside maybe more than they should. Now, the organic guys up in that area and in the Northeast, upper Midwest, absolutely, of course, have to graze to the 30% dry matter intake rule. And so that's a good thing for exercise, because I have 5 factors for like general health, and that's basically sunshine, fresh air, high forage diets, good dry, clean bedding, and fresh water. And if you ask me, that's your best vaccination program as well, those 5 things. So anytime there's any hindrance to providing fresh air, sunshine, clean water, dry bedding, and high forage diets for ruminants, there's potential problems.
In your opinion, what role do botanicals, biologics, homeopathics play in promoting animal health and supporting the overall regenerative ecosystem on a farm?
Well, one, they're all made from nature. And so, philosophically, conceptually, it should fit hand in glove into the animal system. And honestly, I think botanicals work really well in herbivores. I mean, their digestive system is adapted to botanical substances, plants. And so, and most homeopathics are derived from botanicals and minerals, and some animal substances as well. So it just kind of keeps the system, the whole cycle full and circular in a good way, not to have to look outside of nature for fixing a problem. Now, that said, I would not want to be without a modern antibiotic once in a while. As a matter of fact, my life has been saved by vancomycin. Vancomycin is one of those antibiotics that hospitals use when they don't know what's going wrong, mysteriosis, and veterinarians are not allowed to use that particular drug and a few others antibiotics so that it can be used in human medicine. So basically, there's a spot for antibiotics. There's a spot for them to save a life, and which we need to do to be good stewards of animals that we take care of. I mean, animals look at us in the eye. We look at them eye to eye. And to try to put like a purist philosophy on a living being, for me as a practitioner who wants to help animals get better, is difficult. However, I've learned to play within the rules of, the organic world using homeopathy, botanicals, biologics, and I love it. But I want to be able to use everything if possible. But the other thing is, if we stay away from the antibiotics and hormones and steroids and all that, then we can also keep back a lot of the pharmaceutical industry's huge sledgehammer or big paw print on agriculture, which has just grown and grown and grown since the 1950s or 60s, when like veterinary science and agribusiness, found out that, hey, we use antibiotics in the feed, we can have more animals under the roof. That, basically, and that's exploded over the last 50 years. And so just simply out of not wanting to do that, we should look to natural treatments that were used for thousands of years, and to complete our system of agriculture that is healthful, beneficial, both to the animals themselves, to the planet, to the people, everybody.
Right. For that to be the easy, cheap fix, right? To throw the antibiotics in the feed when in the conventional systems. Sacrificing potentially animal health and also human health, right?
Yep.
And antimicrobial resistance. Folks out here using antibiotics that can't, they're not able to treat things that they've been able to treat for years and years, cause the treatment through the roof. So it definitely using them in a limited way. And our standards, of course, prohibited. But I also see, your perspective of, you want to help the animal one way or another.
Well, let me say also that medical researchers have been in touch with me over the years when I was in practice, full-time practice, because they're looking for alternatives to antibiotics. So the same world that's been very, attuned and tuned in and addicted to antibiotics, some people can see the writing on the wall, and sometimes it's being forced upon them by, let's say, society and the public government and whatnot. But some people are actually reaching out to say, hey, doc, like, what do you use on these organic cows? Like, let's try it. And so this one study actually looked at vaccinating dry cows to have them have hyperimmune colostrum to the certain antigen, and it was being used against pediatric diarrhea in developing countries. So that's a good thing. So they are looking actively into the natural world to the degree that their minds can't want to. Yeah.
As we close the circle in regenerative ag, how do you see the symbiotic relationship between healthy soils and healthy animals contributing to the long-term sustainability of farms and the environment as a whole?
Well, it's all in the grass, and that's based in the soil, and it's just one continuum. The way conventional agriculture is, we all know how that is basically you throw something at this substance, which is the earth, the soil, which should have living organisms in it, and well, then you can get something to grow, but it's killing the earth. And like I said earlier, here, what I've really learned at this farm, and I've been here 7 years now with Suzanne, is biology, and enhancing biology is so key. I mean, we have birds here. We have right now two falcons, two hawks, and a falcon outside, and I got to watch it for my cats now, outside my house cats. And we got a fox in the glade, and we got butterflies everywhere, and we have birds that I haven't seen. I keep seeing new birds every year now, which is really cool. It's like they like it here. And so I really feel, and Suzanne and I both feel, that we're stewards of God's kingdom, and we want to make the world a better place. And so the soil, the animals on the soil, and the fact is, conventional ag has divorced the animals from the soil, but the animals in contact with the soil, even the kinetic energy of the hooves on the land, helps the soil in some way. And just because we can't maybe measure it doesn't mean we can't sense it helping the vibrancy of things, and animals grazing correctly, so that there's regrowth and the rest periods. And rest periods are such a key thing in regenerative agriculture and grazing. So giving ample rest and diverse pastures will give diverse life. And where there's diversity, there's always more insulation to a single pest coming in. I think that's pretty well established, and I definitely agree with that.
So you and your wife Suzanne have definitely learned a ton from your experience over the years, and developed a lot of knowledge about regenerative ag and helping other farmers and such. What advice would you give for new farmers who are just starting out, especially in terms of prioritizing animal health in their regenerative practices?
This may sound pretty simple and almost, but learn the regular system. As I said, I grew up in the suburbs of Philly. I have learned everything almost. There's always more to learn, but from soils to dairy cows, and now we're going to be operating a small cheese manufacturing facility nearby, which is already gone. So from soil to food, but each step of the way, you have to know the basic biology, the basic hygiene, if you will, when it comes to cows, the basics. And so if it means learning conventional methods, at least for animal husbandry, just to understand what the animals are, how they work, how they act, do that. Hopefully, when we do have interns at our farm, they come here and they learn that, but in a holistic way. So, but really, truly, you have to know that, certain soils are going to be erodible compared to other soils. You have to know that you need air, you need channels in the soil to have air and water movement, and then everything happens in a good way. If you only graze cattle, you could compact the soil, and you wouldn't know that because you're saying, it's cool, we're grazing, that's cool. But you might actually be compacting the soil, and once in a while, you might have to have a rip tillage once in a while, maybe every few years, just to loosen the soil some. So you really just have to know the basics of agriculture, and that's not easy. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go into animal livestock husbandry. And but one thing you want to always hopefully be able to do is make that connection with your animals, because that's what life is about, is connection. That's what we all want. And there's lots of ways to go about connecting with other life, but in a holistic regenerative farm, you're giving animals the best chance at having the best life possible, without doubt. You still got to know the basics, and that's what I'm here for. That's what other people like Alan Williams are here for, Gary Zimmer are here for. Yeah, have have 1 foot in the box, if you will, regular agriculture, and 1 foot outside the box, and then you can forge your own way. And if you're attuned to regenerative, organic, holistic agriculture, you're gonna go in the way you want to go with a good basis.
Thank you, Dr. Karreman. It's been a pleasure to get to talk to you and learn from you over the past, half hour, 45 minutes.
My pleasure.
For anybody that is listening, obviously you see this man as a wealth of knowledge. This is definitely someone you want to learn more from. regenerateconference.com. We will be doing a virtual tour of Dr. Karreman's farm in North Carolina. The dates are November 1st to 3rd for the in-person conference. There's also the virtual options that are offered on the site. Please go get some tickets, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you so much, Michael. We'll see you there. Bye.